National Assembly passes 2021 appropriation bill. CBN revokes 42 microfinance banks operating licenses, just as NDIC commences liquidation processes for them. Disbursements by the CBN on 3.1 million projects rise to 6.01 trillion naira. African Development Bank Board OK's 2021 borrowing program. Plus, oil prices fall amid worries over new coronavirus strain. Details of this and more on Business Express, reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. I am Benny Adams, your guide. The National Assembly has passed the 2021 appropriation bill of 13.5 trillion naira, 505 billion higher than the figure submitted by the executive, with National Social Investment Program responsible for the major increment. The budget of economic recovery and resilience has 4.1 trillion allocated to capital expenditure. Recurrent is 5.6 trillion, while statutory transfers is 3.3 trillion. The legislature maintained the benchmark of 40 United States dollars per barrel, crude oil production of 1.86 million barrels per day, and an exchange rate of 379 naira to a dollar. No form of delay or setback will be tolerated from persons or terminal operators towards meeting up the January 2021 inauguration of train operations from Apapa Port to Ibadan. Minister of Transportation Rotimi Amechi, who clarifies this position while on an inspection tour of the project in Lagos State, appealed for more concerted efforts from all key players. Abolade Salami reports.
Infrastructural development in the last 5 years cuts across all sectors, one of which is the road transportation that has suffered neglect for decades. The sound signaling takeoff from the Ibute Metro station onward Lily Pond in Apapa. On board is the Minister of Transportation and his team to inspect the laying of standard and narrow gauge road tracks to aid the movement of containers from the loading bay in the ports targeted at decongesting the corridor.
What is critical is that we must find a solution to the gridlock. The moment we begin to move cargoes from the seaport to at least Ibadan, then the pressure on Lagos will reduce drastically.
So you must walk around the timetable and the agreed laying of the tracks. It's not for you to decide.
While the ride from Apapa en route Kajola, Papalanto, through Olodo in Abeokuta to Moniya in Ibadan was a jolly ride, owing to the completion of major works. The minister at some stations urged contractors to speed up work.
As we're talking today, we're under pressure to get more coaches to Kaduna Abuja. The pressure is heavy, and announced that we must maintain social distancing with face masks.
And you know, the comfort here is not the same like the road vehicles. You can time yourself that I'm leaving Lagos 4, and you know you get to Ibadan at now 6:30.
In ensuring more convenience for passengers, the Nigerian Railway Corporation says a first run for e-ticketing will commence on the corridor to guard against manipulation of the process.
The Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation, NDIC, says it has commenced a process to liquidate 42 microfinance banks following the recent revocation of their licenses by the Central Bank of Nigeria. The corporation stated that it would today, being 21st December, begin till Thursday, 24th December 2020 to verify the claims of stakeholders of the affected institutions. The verification exercise would hold at the branches of the the FMB and would involve meeting with the depositors, creditors, and stakeholders of the banks to ascertain their relationships as well as their deposits and preparatory to their liquidation. The CBN had in 2018 revoked the operating licenses of about 153 FMBs and 6 primary mortgage banks. The dollar climbed against major peers on Monday, with investors seeking its relative safety as many countries tightened COVID-19 lockdowns. Let's now see how the naira is exchanging for other international currencies. Oil and gas remain an important part of the energy mix, especially in developing regions. Amidst global energy transition, the demand, financial and social future of oil and gas companies requires the attention of stakeholders to meet decarbonization required for climate change. In this report, Bosede Abel tells us the role being played by Seplat, an indigenous petroleum company, and how they are touching lives.
The world is at the center of a massive energy revolution, and by 2040, the global demand for all forms of fuel and power is projected to be 4 times what it was in 1990. In Nigeria, this poses both a challenge and an opportunity for energy companies. The federal government is, however, working to see the oil and gas industry shift towards cleaner energy sources while focusing on natural gas as transition. To this end, Seplat Nigeria, an independent indigenous oil and gas company, is up to speed in adding its voice to the global conversation on climate change. Not only is Seplat focused on oil, but also partnering with Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation (NNPC) in a multi-billion naira gas project sited at Asa in Imo State. This Seplat say we create more job opportunities for both skilled and unskilled youths. The education sector is also a beneficiary of Seplat magnanimity, as over 45,140 students have been impacted since the inception of Paris Quiz Corporate Social Responsibility Program in 2012. Seplat is today a leading gas supplier in the domestic gas market, with about 350 million scarves supplied to the domestic market daily. This has contributed immensely to the growth in the nation's power development capacity and support the government diversification agenda. With a vision of a world-class premium energy solution provider, Seplat also has a mission to sustainably deliver profitable, diversified energy solutions through operational excellence, skilled workforce, and effective partnership. Bosede Abel, Business Express.
And now from Touching Lives, we join Leah Katung Babatunde in this interactive session with Roger Thompson Brown, the Chief Executive Officer of Seplat Petroleum Development Company, PLC.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Could you tell us about the mandate of Seplat?
Yes, Seplat has been around for 10 years. Actually, we celebrated our 10th year anniversary this year. And it's an indigenous Nigerian company, oil and gas, and I'd say broader energy company is where we're really heading as an entity. It's been set up really to do what should have been done years and years ago, which is ownership of energy within Nigeria should really start to transfer into Nigerian hands in terms of companies. And Seplat was one of the first set up to do this, and others followed in our footsteps. And really it's about moving the ownership and having Nigerian companies develop what's needed, very, very needed energy for a very hungry, growing population. So that's what Seplat's really there to do, is to expand and grow and capitalize on opportunities and deliver value to all its stakeholders.
Okay, yeah, you just marked a decade in the oil and gas sector. What would you say is the hallmark of a Seplat in developing the sector?
I think it's about doing things properly to the highest standards you can, both operationally and how we conduct ourselves, how we develop communities, contractors, how we engage with our government partners, and how we attract capital to expand, right? So we have capital coming from Nigeria, we have capital coming from the world, the globe. And it's about delivering that very transparent mandate of a company that operates the highest levels it can to do the right thing for shared prosperity for all. So that's really what its mandate is. There's huge opportunity in country, and I think there's an energy sector that really does need developed quite dramatically. There's a lot of power needed in country, and we need to get the Nigerian population off diesel generators everywhere and move them on to gas, which is very abundant, and also at some point in the future, solar power, which I think is going to be one of the biggest power sources for Nigeria. So we've all got a lot of work to do, and we're delighted to be able to do this as a company that's grown from within Nigeria and showing the world that we can do this properly.
So I want to ask you this question of the book. We have had this conversation around indigenous production, safe energy, and when we hear someone driving a local consumption, local production, we want to put a face to it, and then we see you.
Right. Well, you know, I think the answer to that is that we are majority Nigerian, from employees to our board and everything else. I joined the company 7 years ago, and we had the CEO succession decided, and it was announced last November, and the board just approached it as saying, look, let's look at who we have internally, who's potentially externally, and let's get the right individual to lead this company to the next level. I mean, yes, it's important to be, and I'm not Nigerian, as you can see quite clearly, right? But, you know, I've been here a lot of years, so I do understand it reasonably well. And I think the other thing is that we've got a lot of capital from all around the world. So when I say capital, I mean investors, owners of the business, are multifaceted. They're not just one population. They're from around the world. So I think that capital really looks for stability in how it's been run. But I can rest assured there are not many people like me in the company, and almost all of it is Nigerian.
Can you speak to us about your recent partnership with the NNPC, which is around the multi-billionaire projects and many ongoing, of course, in the grassroots and communities in the Niger Delta?
Yeah, I mean, look, NNPC is a key partner for us. It's one of it's probably the main partner we've got. We're in a number of blocks with NNPC, either through NPDC or NAPIMS. And I think the project you're referring to is specifically is in the east of the country. It's near Owerri, it's Imo State. And what we're doing there is we are developing a very big gas project called Ano Gas Project. And that's the 300 million scuff a day project. And what does that mean? That means we estimate that if that gas goes into power, which I think most of it will do, that's probably enough for about 1.5 million homes of electricity. So it's quite sizable in terms of that project. The project development is a very big site, and it's bringing a lot of employment to local communities. So it's a community development project as well, employment, skills transfer, capacity, and then there's a whole lot of CSR projects, development projects that we've deployed elsewhere. We've been in the West for 10 years. We're now using a lot of skills and stuff we've learnt, and we're bringing it to the East.
Can you speak to us about some of these CSR projects? And of course, the bulk of Nigerians will want to hear how soon can we begin to see physically the impact of these projects? Yeah,
well, look, we've broken ground. We're quite far development. We expect to be on stream the gas the end of next year. So there's a lot of construction happening on site at the minute. So it's today it's happening. But what I would say is beyond the gas plant, there's going to be a lot more development in that area. So I know that the Imo State governor is really promoting a lot of industry into the state. So we expect business parks and industrial zones to grow up around that. And of course that gas can then be utilised in the Imo area, but also the gas can get taken to a pipeline into Lagos and into Abuja. So it can go countrywide in terms of that, but it will create a lot of local development within Imo State. And I know there's big ambition plans, and we're very much supportive of that going into the future. Okay, can I just get your thoughts on the government's plan to drive more gas usage? Well, you know, it's very, very logical. You know, when I first came here 15 years ago, I saw that there was a lot of gas, but of course electricity was created by diesel. And that's still largely, well, it's got better, but it's still there today. And that's, the government's really seeing that is that transition fuel to displace a lot of the diesel. I think also to export gas when you can actually utilize it internally within Nigeria. So the government is very much big promoters behind domestic gas projects. And we're going to see a lot more gas plants, a lot more gas pipelines. They're doing the AKK pipeline as well, which is, so they're going to gasify the entire country. And that really will transform, I think, Nigeria into that leaner, cleaner fuel, and actually less costly than importing diesel. So yeah, it's ambitious, but you know, you've got to start somewhere. I think you have to start with ambitious plans and develop it. But there's a lot of drive behind it, and certainly the world now is moving away from carbon intensive, and it really is looking at lower carbon fuels. So there's a lot of support globally for this as well. So one last question: have you eaten Nigerian jollof rice? Yes, and snails. And lots of other things. So I like it. The only thing I can't handle is pepper soup. It's too much for me. So we're going to look at that. Makes me sweat as well. Okay, so thank you very much for spending this time with us. Pleasure. Good to talk to you.
Well, moving on, gold prices firmed on Monday as investors cheered news that a U.S. fiscal stimulus deal was likely to be passed, although gains were capped by a stronger dollar. And oil prices slided Monday as a fast-spreading new coronavirus strain in the United Kingdom raised concerns that tighter restrictions there and in other European countries could stall a recovery in the global economy and its need for fuel. Brent crude dropped 97 cents to $51.29 a barrel after rising 1.5% and touching its highest since March last Friday. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude was down 83 cents to $48.27 a barrel after also climbing 1.5% on Friday to its highest level since February. Monday's declines came after oil prices marked 7 straight weeks of gains last week as investors focused on the rollout of COVID-19 vaccines. Nigerian stocks remain on steroids, advancing by 7.46% on the week. Bossere Able takes it from here.
The NSE All-Share Index and market capitalization for week ended 18th December appreciated by 7.46% to close the week at 36,804.75 and 19.2 trillion naira. At a turnover of 1.8 billion shares worth 17.6 billion naira in 20,660 deals were traded by investors on the floor of the exchange. Meanwhile, all other indices finished higher, with the exception of NSE ASM and NSE Growth indices, which closed flat. The financial services industry led the activity chart with 1.4 billion shares valued at 8.3 billion naira, traded in 10,834 deals. It was followed by the consumer goods industry with 106.9 million shares worth 2.3 billion naira in 3,447 deals. The third place was the services industry with a turnover of 74.7 million shares. The top three equities were Jaiz Bank, FBN Holdings and Niger Insurance, which mutually accounted for 761.8 million shares worth 1.4 billion naira in 1,395 deals. A total of 412,358 units of exchange-traded products, ETPs, valued at 1.3 billion naira, were traded in 40 deals, as well as a total of 47,699 units of federal government bonds, valued at 53.1 million naira, were traded in 22 deals. Summary of price changes saw 53 equities appreciated in price during the week, 17 equities depreciated in price, while 91 equities remained unchanged. Boss Day Able, Business Express.
It's a green start on the Nigerian Stock Exchange as the NSE All-Share Index advanced 1.74% to close at 37,443.40 at the close of trade Monday. Market capitalization crossed the 19 trillion mark to 19.5 trillion naira. 427 million shares exchanged hands by investors in 5,258 deals, valued at 3.3 billion naira. Mansard, Jopo, Gold and Transcorp were the toast of investors, having recorded the highest volume of traded shares. Dangote Cement led the price gainers at 209 naira per share. It was followed by Bulk Gas and Flour Mill. Meanwhile, the Board of Directors of the African Development Bank has approved the bank's 2021 borrowing program for up to $10.4 billion to be raised from capital markets. The bank, in a statement, said the borrowing program will allow the bank to raise funds in the debt capital markets in order to help finance its projects and programs in Africa. The statement also adds that AFDB is active in various international capital markets, including the US dollar, euro, Australian dollar, and pound sterling. Stocks in Asia Pacific traded lower on Monday as the coronavirus situation in parts of North Asia remains serious. Boseriable reports.
Traders are nervously watching the new COVID mutation in the UK, which has resulted in a tough lockdown in London and other parts of southeast London, and a U-turn on the mixing of households over the Christmas break. European market plunged on Monday as investors monitored a fast-spreading new variant of the coronavirus that has shut down much of the UK. The coronavirus situation in parts of North Asia, such as Japan and South Korea, remains severe and could have weighed on investor sentiment. Stocks in Asia Pacific were mixed on Monday as the coronavirus situation in parts of North Asia remains serious. Shanghai Composite up 0.76% to 3,420.57. Hang Seng Index declined 0.72% to close at 26,306.68, and Nikkei also dipped 0.18% to close at 26,714.42. Stock futures traded in red in the United States early Monday as Congress managed to seal a coronavirus stimulus deal hours before a shutdown deadline. Futures on the Dow Jones Industrial Average pointed to an opening drop of 300 points. S&P 500 futures and Nasdaq 100 futures both traded lower. It was mixed for Africa stocks as Nairobi's All-Share and Tunisia's Tunidex opened positive. Ghana's GSA Composite was marginal, while South Africa's JSA Africa Top 40 and Namibia's overall index were negative. Boss Day Able, Business Express.
This is where we end this edition of Business Express. We value your feedback, so keep the comments, observations, and suggestions coming. Be informed that all previous episodes are available on YouTube on the NTA's channel. You can also communicate with us on Twitter, and the handle is NTA News Now. The hashtag is BizX. Business Express returns Tuesday by 9:30 a.m. Be safe out there.